Hey guys, Marty from Team Peace and Pass here, and we're doing Market Watch. It's the end of the month, so we always do like to do Market Watch towards the end of the month, and especially with Ascent KL and EU Nats just finishing up over the weekend. We want to take a look at some of the cards that people are playing and where they're at. So starting off with Andronica. Andronica is your strategy for your Wind Lorraine allies, buffing your Shimmer Cloaks and things like that for early aggression. Carded in March was sitting around 7 and has trickled up into the $11 to $12 range for it. There are a couple foils that you don't have to spend too much more to get. If you're looking to get some foil options, there's a few of them that are listed for around $20. So definitely something to consider for that. Speaking of fire strategies, you have Arthur. So Arthur is being played in Fire Lorraine, in Fire Gojira, in Xander. Your early aggression, immortality, buff your stats guy, and your go-to for it. Alter editions are sitting at about $50. Young Air First Edition, there was only two. There was a couple that were listed at $38. However, they just got bought out. So literally, as I'm doing this, you had a couple listed for $38, and now there's a playset listed for $60. So hopefully you bought your Arthurs in advance, and you definitely can kind of see what happens with that trend as you're doing it. So moving on, you have your slime cards, your baby green slime. This is going to get reprinted in the light recollection for Sylvie. They're sitting at about $8. They were trending into like the $4 to $5 range. So frankly, if you want my opinion, I would hold off on buying any of these. They're really great for the strategy to bounce, Forest Cakes to draw cards. You bounce your Beseech Fate Stone to be able to materialize another thing. However, between this and I'll bring it up as well, Forest Cake, being $4 as well. You're spending basically, if you buy a set of each, you're spending almost $50. Well, with that deck coming out in a month, you definitely can just buy the deck, get all the extra cards. You get the baby green altar that they're providing for that as well. So I would hold off on buying these. It's not like you're playing a slime strategy anyways, but if you really have to play these for Nats, then obviously buy what you need for these, but just hold off. That's my opinion. Beseech the Winds. So these guys have trended upward as well. 45-ish for your altars and 65 for your first editions. A lot of strategies with Saryu playing this with your wind decks like Xander. I was playing it to be able to materialize Art of War or Viridian Protective Trinket, Safeguard, stuff like that early on, and it doesn't hinder your actual materialization. Hopefully with this and Arthur, we see a reprint in the near future or an alter edition in maybe SP3, something like that, to where we can really get these prices to kind of cool down. Carter for the Umbra strategy coming out with the Guardian. Your regular alchemical altered first editions are going to be sitting at 60, and your alter editions are sitting at 35. So this card's most likely not going to be reprinted in the DTR set. So hopefully we can see some Alchemical Revolution re-release of Alter Edition that maybe bring that down a little bit. But if you were thinking that strategy, you probably picked them up well in advance. If you're considering it, maybe that's something that you need to consider your price point to pay. Chill to the Bone, something that's it's in Diao Chan Recollection deck. It's a really good side deck strategy if you're playing fractals or water decks against allies, because if you control the Fantasias, you're able to get -4/-4. If you're playing like Gembu and stuff, you set up your Fractal Rains or your Polar Fractals, things like that. You can certainly utilize the strategy or this card for that strategy. However, you are primarily using this in Diao Chan for your ally matchup, or even the mirror match. Hitting Frostborn, hitting Gildus, hitting Ace and Protectors, those things that have big health stats, and just killing it for 2 is definitely something to consider for that as well. Crystallized Destiny, another side deck card that you want to consider. With these fractal decks still being very strong with it. Taking 7 or more damage, you get the additional effect of your opponent cards cost 2 more to activate. A lot of, in the late game strategies, they do end up tending to get 6 or 7 fractals set up to be able to try to burst this under you, but they'll use Refracting Missile or Shimmering Refraction to deal the damage, and you can just prevent it. Dream Fairy, it hits the Senjus. it's good for the ally mirrors to hit something and prevent them from playing an ace in, or you hit their Dream Fairy, and now they can't play another Dream Fairy, and you can start playing your cards and things like that. So they have to answer this card. You can see that they're in the $20 to $25 mark, and actually there's only a couple listings of this guy at 19. There's only, and then 20. After that, it jumps up to $27. So definitely something to consider with that in the future. If you are playing those strategies, hopefully you have them, and go from there. GCR, I would like to cover this because it is the main regalia divine relic that people use. $85 for the altar and $115 for the first edition. Another card, hopefully we'll see a reprint. A lot of DOA is being covered for this because a lot of those cards from the beginning strategies from 2 years ago have really trended upward, and there's not a reprint for them. And so hopefully we'll see something in the future for this too. Dungeon guides, not a lot of strategies for the main stuff right now are playing this. If you think of the main stuff like allies, aggro, and fractals, however, your other strategies of like Gojira and things like that are playing this with wind and things like that. They are sitting at about $20 for a couple of them, but most of them are $27 to $35. So, Everflame Staff. Everflame Staff is sitting at about $9, used in your Diao Chan fire strategies. It's trickled up from a $4 card to an $8 card. There's a few listed there, $10, things like that. So if you're on with that kind of aspect, we've seen a fire Vanitas build play this, which was kind of cool. So you utilize this, Razor Gale, Searing Rebukes, things like that for that strategy. Fracturize, one of the best cards in the water decks, being able to turn your power cell into a Fantasia for your extra damage. Floating Memory, $15 to $18 for this card. $7 was originally in March, and then obviously Fractals and then Water took off, so that you've seen that trend go upward with this from FTC. Speaking of water decks, Frostborn Paladin, it's the best ally in water, period. So banish your float, get your draw. We all know how that works. However, there's only a couple listings at 19, and then it shoots up to $25 a piece. Again, it's one of those cards that, the water strategy sitting at the 8, then you had HVN take off, and then it just exploded, and people are buying this card out. Speaking of that as well, you have Gildus. Gildus is being played in the fractal strategy because of the fact that you can always balance your hand majority of the time with playing certain cards, things like that. And being able to swing for 4 consistently and constantly. Now they're sitting at back up to where $40 or so. They were at $27, but they've kind of done that little trickle trend. $20 dipped down to the 18, and then just shot straight up. And there's only a couple of these guys listed. If you need them for US Nats, you're paying $40 a piece. Snaring Fumes, one of the side deck strategies for a lot of wind decks to be able to get rid of like Genbu, Seiryu, things like that, and really just halter those strategies. Xander decks and Tristan decks made this to be able to not only bounce those kinds of things, but bounce your windmills, and it's a floating if you are an assassin. So one of those things that have trickled upward. Something that's actually trickled down, Heavenly Guide, being the fact that we are not playing a lot of level 3 strategies right now, and just playing allies and fractals and things. You have to be at level 2 for it, first of all, and then they basically have the dungeon guide, and then you get the free level up. Well, because of that, they're at $9 to $10 a piece because nobody's really playing this card at the moment. Everyone thought it was really good. It's a really good card coming out. It's a great side deck option for some people. If you are expecting to play a lot of level 3 decks at locals or regionals or things, maybe side a couple of them, but you're mostly siding for allies and fractals at the moment. Xander taking off again with Lightweaver's Assault. You can see the card kind of dipped a little bit, and it was, $8, $9, but because of the strategy taking off and being very widely popular, you can see them sitting at $30 a piece. Now, If you're looking to do that, you can always eventually get the promos from after people cash them in for their CPRs. You might be able to get some of them from anywhere between $75 to $125. That's what people are selling them for. So if you want to foil out your deck and get some bling in there, these you can definitely pick up. There's some that you can buy from EU and from overseas, but US Nats will take off here in about a month, and they'll be a little more available for that too. But just keep in mind, if you're going with the strategy, you're paying $120 for the playset. Rococo. So Rococo, fire aggro again with Arthur and combining all that stuff for that early game aggression. We did have ALC Alter that came out that gave a little bit of a cool to it. However, people have bought that out. $5, $7, $8, $9 trickling on upward over time to where it's at now, sitting at $40 for your play set. So you're playing those fire aggression strategies, Diao Chan, Xander, whatever you're playing, definitely something that you need to consider for that. Overload MK3. One of my favorite cards, frankly. I wish that it was a little easier to get off. However, I can understand why. Intercept, Spell, Shroud, Steadfast, True Sight, banish a dude, get a buff, get a draw. A couple of regionals, there were some people playing this and just winning with this card and getting it off. So because of that, it was a $5, $6 card. It's gone up to 10 to 12. It's a really cool strategy to try to get this guy off, and then you just they were playing like I think it was a water build, and they were just healing it, so that way basically people just couldn't kill it, and really just made matchups hard, especially against like allies. If you can get this off and have the ability to heal it constantly between intercepts and steadfast and everything, you're doing the damage of wiping the board. So Heated Vengeance. Fire aggro decks play this strategy. It was an 80-cent card. Now it's $10. Rares do that a lot, so hopefully you got your playset of these. Impact Hammer, and then just attacking with this. Impact Hammer dealing the damage, and then you're swinging for 7 with the Impact Hammer. Then you can Blazing Throw to deal 11 from just 2 cards. If you're, Lorraine as well, some of the fire aggro decks are playing that instead of just using the Impact Hammer because of the class bonus. You can just deal 3 and have it swing for 5 and attack with like a Huaji or Sword of Seeking or whatever you need to for that strategy as well. The last thing I wanted to go over was HVN, since it is our main set, kind of take a look and see where prices are at with this. Obviously, DTR doesn't come out until the end of July, I believe, so this is going to be the main set for a little bit. And going over some of those, your Fatestone CSRs have kind of cooled down. You can get some for between $250 to $350 if you're looking to foil out one of those guys. The regular ones are sitting anywhere between $25 to $35 as well. One of the cards I wanted to talk about was Art of War. So this card on set release was sitting at about $75. It's trickled downward into the $45 price point. With a lot of strategies not being ally focused, I can see why this card trended downward a little bit. And it's kind of just, GCR draws versus this. And if they already, if you don't go first, you're not able to establish this where they maybe already have a couple guys. It does prevent that, but the thing that you want to keep in mind is a lot of people are either playing this main deck or they're siding it for the ally matchup. So as allies becomes a little bit more dominant, you might see this card trend back upward. So I would probably pick one of these up for about $40 and just hold on to it. I mean, what's the worst thing that happens with it? You can use it in some of your strategies and things like that overall. So, one of the other cards to talk about is Huaji. Huaji, being in Lorraine, was a $15 card upon release. There's one listed at $30 if you want to try to snag that up real quick. If not, it's $40 for these guys. So it's definitely something you want to consider picking up for sure. There's a few other things like Zhang Jiao and other strategies and things like that as well. Serious Command and a lot of your $20 cards, your 12 to 13, and your 10s with Extricating Touch and Fire Bloom Flourish. So having an extra round of reprints in this for the side set allowed a lot of these prices to be lower, which is quite nice. So you can definitely pick up some of these that you're considering sooner than later, because obviously as cards aren't being listed, they get bought out. So, but that's gonna cover it for Market Watch, guys. I really appreciate it. As always, like, comment, and subscribe. I definitely can use that. The more people we have, the better quality of things that we can do in the future for things. And as always, peace, guys. Thanks.